Hello everyone, my name is Igor, I am 32 years old. When I was 13 years old, a 10,000 volt charge went through me. It happened right before my birthday. The next day I was supposed to turn 14. After practice, I saw the guys playing soccer near my house. I had to ask my mom for permission repeatedly before joining them. We played soccer first, then switched to crocodile. Well, that's hide and seek. And as usual, in every 9-story building, there's a boiler room with hot pipes on one side. On the other side, there are transformers, as it turned out later. And those big doors that lead to the transformer rooms had been open for 2 years. What does this room look like? You walk into a regular room, like a locker room, with lockers on the right and left sides, and one of those lockers was open. I climbed in, closing the door slightly, thinking I'd go further to avoid being noticed. It was dark, so I wouldn't be seen. I must have touched some kind of arc, maybe with my ear, yeah, probably with my ear, and it threw me back. Usually, in such cases, transformers pull you in, and all that's left of a person is just ashes. But I got thrown back, and later they told me it was because of grounding. I was wearing rubber sneakers. I don't remember any of this. So this is all from what the witnesses said. I knocked out the power for half a block with fireworks, essentially throwing myself a birthday party. Well, I thought, why not, without even realizing it. So from this room, I ran out on my own, in shock, and a man started putting out the fire on me with sand from a nearby sandbox, as I was literally on fire from the 10,000 volt electrical discharge. And my mom hears a sound, someone knocking on the door. My mom says she doesn't remember how she ran down from the 5th floor and started trying to catch me as I was running around in shock, trying to get away from everyone. Completely black from the neck down to the waist. I had a black t-shirt on and only the collar and a small piece of the shirt were left. The following day, he reported that all the doors were blocked, with new iron ones installed, as if nothing occurred. So they called an ambulance. I don't know exactly what happened during those 20 minutes while the ambulance was on its way. I had burns on 65% of my body. 3rd and 4th degree, well, 4th degree is when even the bones are burning, the front, chest and stomach down to the most important areas. What I had, my first question was still in the hospital, and my first question was, Mom, is everything okay down there? She said, actually, everything is fine there. So my fingers, they were close to being amputated, but they were saved and are fine now. My mom was willing to donate hers, but the doctor said they wouldn't be suitable, despite our wishes. The extent, my back completely, the whole torso, I was lucky that my face wasn't affected. They put me in intensive care. During the first 2 months, the doctors told my parents categorically that I wouldn't survive. I didn't lose consciousness or anything like that. 2 days later, my mom told me that I came to and started talking to them. And I remember the scene in front of me. There was this yellow lamp in front of me, the kind that dries the skin, because I had my first surgery and they had to remove all the skin that was burned. My mom and dad were there, and at that moment my coach came in too. I used to do ballroom dancing. We were preparing for a competition in a week. When I woke up, my first thought was whether I could stay there for 2 more days. Of course, they told me right away, yes, of course, just a couple of days and everything will be fine. I saw everyone in tears, speaking to me, nearly breaking down. Everyone understood that it wasn't going to be 2 or 3 days. In general, there were about let's say more than 20 surgeries. A skin graft is when, for example, a piece is taken from your leg and attached to another part of your body, so you end up with a new wound on your leg. They were already attaching it, and the pain was so severe that it was psychologically unbearable. Because all the first surgeries were done under general anesthesia, meaning I was completely put under, but later they used local anesthesia since there were so many general anesthetics. I had a situation where I experienced clinical death. Afterwards, they started using local anesthesia on me. That's when they numb the area where they're going to do the surgery. I spent about 3 months in bed without getting up. I remember one day, then the next day, I could move my neck back for about half an hour. I had a tube inserted through my nose all the way into my stomach. That is, so I could swallow a little food. It was a whole process that lasted for 2 months. It didn't matter if I was on my back or on my stomach. I constantly needed to be fed. I remember food going directly into my stomach. The next stage was when they performed plastic surgeries. Under the arms, new skin. So I couldn't lift my arms there. I was completely stiff, like a log. Before, my arm could only move like this, and they also operated on my neck because I couldn't even turn my neck to the right. The skin graft wasn't done very well and it tightened so much that I was walking like that. So they had to redo it too, meaning they did these mechanical plastic surgeries. So I had to learn to eat, walk and do everything all over again. I saw a lot of people die, even those who had smaller burns, a lot of adult men who just couldn't handle it psychologically. Support was the most important thing. There wasn't a single day when not even a single thought crossed my mind that I could die. And most importantly, it was my mom who, I can't imagine how she managed, because the doctors kept telling her every day that I could die. And she would say, I'll go and cry it out. All those tears, everything they told me in the shower, that lump in my throat. I come to you like always in a good mood, because I understand that if you see me crying, if I start telling you the whole truth, it will only make things worse. But I already saw it then, but she still came with red eyes. Everything was paid for by ourselves, by my parents. My parents were ready to sell their apartment just to save me. Yes, my parents filed a lawsuit. They were suing the government agency. But as it turned out, it's very difficult. So we lost in the first instance, then we filed an appeal, and my parents lost that too. That's how it was. But I'm sure I can honestly say that if I were the age I am now back then, we definitely would have won. But now, because the statute of limitations has passed, that's it. I wanted to do this, but by the time I realized I could handle it, it was already too late. It's been over a decade. It wasn't a crime. I was just lying there, unable to move at all, not even my arm. So about 7 doctors would come in. They would just lift me up, stand me vertically on the floor like this. My legs would shake for 10 seconds, and then they'd put me back down. And so it went, day by day, bit by bit. By the end of August, I was able to walk down the hallway on my own for the first time. Everyone in the hospital, including the chief doctor, started clapping. When I started facing the outside world, my first thought was how people would perceive me as someone new, because I really was different. That was the worst period of my life, not when I was in the hospital, but psychologically it was just hard to return to the outside world as a different person. How will my classmates react? Because on September 1st, I went to the first day of school. Everyone was there. The homeroom teacher was shocked. It was 9th grade. Yes, some people didn't know how to act because I was still all covered in pimples, red and big, because all the medications that had been put into me were gradually coming out. I was a scary looking guy. You see, before all this happened, I was one of the leaders at school, and some classmates who were my good friends acted like nothing had happened. Igor, everything's fine. Some classmates I rarely spoke to didn't know how to behave, but there wasn't a single person who would say, oh, you, like, who are you anyway? There were even new acquaintances there, both with girls and guys, and I could already see how they were looking at me. And accordingly, that confidence, it just disappeared. I attended my first practice just 3 days after being discharged from the hospital at the end of August. Well, just to go and see how things are, what's going on there. So gradually, little by little, rehabilitation, stretching my arms, shoulders and everything else. And my partner and I already started somewhere around 3 months later. We were even able to train properly and intensively. Well, we only danced the European dance program. That means you can only hold the frame like this, not like this, but I could do this one. And we went to a tournament 6 months later. Everyone was just shocked that I even, put on a tailcoat. The doctors didn't forbid me from training. On the contrary, it was a great workout. We had practice. There were a lot of couples, and so I was holding hands too. We were dancing in pairs, and I slipped. What's a person's usual reaction, right? You put your hands forward, for example, so you don't fall face first into the ground or something, right? I jerked hard like usual. If done slowly, it's fine. But a sudden forward motion made everything tense. Both armpits under my arms just snapped and tore. I was wearing a white shirt then. It was covered in blood and the kids were freaking out. My partner and I both experienced new wounds. The coach and practices were nearby and my mom was involved right away, which was kind of funny. Of course, my body won't be the same as it was before, but now I've fully recovered physically. There are no problems. And I only go to the doctors when I need to get a medical checkup, because I still have a disability. Now it's the third group. That's the most luxury one. I still have some psychological issues, like how someone looks at me or something like that, but it's less now. And I'll tell you, no matter what kind of people they were, even the wildest ones, there were never any inappropriate questions. The questions were always careful, both from the girls and the guys. I never felt the urge to respond harshly. Perhaps I was just lucky and they were too. It was really difficult back then. Like asking me to wear a short sleeve t-shirt or a t-shirt with a neckline. That's thanks to my current wife, even now. But she made me do it. She said, "You're being silly, calm down, you're normal, everything is fine." Now I'm already at the next stage. That's when my son is 3 years old. And the next stage will start when he goes to school or something like that. Something else. That's what bothers me the most, when they'll start asking about his father. And I don't want to put him in a situation where he'll feel uncomfortable. He doesn't understand that now, being young and getting burns on 65% of your body. For me at that time, it was a certain lesson, and now I realize that nothing is impossible in life.